The AARP recently did a study and found that almost 90% of the aging population would prefer to age in their own homes. Stay tuned to Connecting Our Community and find out more about whether this is a possibility. Hi, I'm Pat Shoemaker. Welcome to Connecting Our Community. Our first guest tonight is Pazit Aviv, the Village Coordinator with Aging and Disability Services for Montgomery County. Joining Pazit is Donna Savage, the Board President of the Villages of Kensington. Welcome to both of you. And when I say that you're from the Villages, it almost sounds like a horror story, a supernatural film or something like that. So please tell me, what is the Villages?
Villages are a national movement. They started in the Beacon Hill, Massachusetts community about 15 years ago. And they started by people who realized that they want to stay at home for the duration of their lifetime, but that there isn't necessarily the infrastructure out there for them. And so they decided to create something for themselves. It's a grassroots idea. And so they established a nonprofit, which then offered them the social support and connection they needed, as well as the hands-on volunteer help for things like changing your light bulb or shoveling your sidewalk and other things like that. So from one community, the idea had spread like wildfire all over the nation and had taken a hold in Montgomery County in a big way.
Yeah.
So we have very many different communities and they all operate independently. So it's a national movement with many different nonprofits all under that umbrella.
That is so interesting that it started with one little idea and has spread like that. So Donna, you're the president of the Villages of Kensington. What does that mean?
The Villages of Kensington is one of those many villages, we serve the 20895 zip code, which is considered Greater Kensington. There's about 17,000 residents in that zip code.
And do you have to sign up, do anything special, or just because you live in that zip code, you automatically are a member or a resident?
No, you're automatically allowed to become a member.
Okay.
Because we can only, within the 20895 zip code is all we can handle, because that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
So you do have to be a member. There is a membership fee because we have some fixed costs, insurance and other kinds of things that someone's got to pay for. But it's an all-volunteer organization. We're members of the board are volunteers. The people who provide services are volunteers. They're all volunteers. Nobody gets paid.
Yeah.
And each is different. Each village is different in that way.
And Pazit, are you a volunteer as well?
I wear a few hats. So I am a member of the Village of Tacoma Park board on my personal life, and I've been a member for the past 6 years. I have found the village in that city. But in my professional capacity, I serve all villages in the county as a staff person. My job is to help villages succeed, launch, thrive, connect, and do better.
Yeah.
And it's been quite the journey.
Yeah. And so how did you get involved in this? You don't look old enough to be considered aging, although we're all aging.
We're all aging.
Yeah.
We're all getting there.
I am a social worker by training, and my field of expertise is senior services. And for me, most social workers work with people who are in the hospital or in home care, and you see the frailty and the vulnerability. And I wanted to invest in programs and services that would be there for people from the upstream investment, to invest in wellness, in care, so people wouldn't need as much as they
Downstream.
as they grow older.
Yeah.
And villages is a very promising idea that appealed to me on so many levels, because when you think about it, it's not just about aging, it's about building a strong community. It's reweaving those network of organic support that we used to have in our communities and have broken down, and villages reinvigorate. It's not rocket science. It's simply bringing people together who share a community to intentionally come together, whether it is for social events or for helping one another. So in some communities, indeed, that's what happens. They start with the idea of aging, but it grows to serve all generations, so they become multi-generational villages.
And Donna, the same question for you. How did you become involved? Again, not that you
I
seem to be
heard,
of the aging community.
about 7 years ago, I heard our county executive, Ike Leggett, at an event that was not about this, but mentioned villages and aging in place. And I just kind of put that in the back of my head and said, that sounds like a great idea. I'll think about how I might get involved in that. So that was in 2010, and in 2014 I went to the Silver Spring Village, which is a couple of years in development ahead of ours. I went to one of their annual events, and I met somebody else there from Kensington, and the two of us got together and we said, hey, we should do this in Kensington. So we did.
And now you're the president.
That's right. That's what I get for having a good idea.
There
right?
you go, there you go. So is it just that, for example, I'm at the grocery store, I happen to start talking to somebody, turns out she lives 3 blocks away from me, and I say, well, hey, let's form the villages. Is it that, or do you have to go through some kind of screening process? Or no, it's just that
Pretty
simple.
much.
You say,
It's- when
"We
you
wanna
say
start this."
This
grassroots,
is
we
very
mean
grassroots.
grassroots.
Yeah, this is very grassroots.
So, but
yeah.
I mean, do you have to be certified? Do you have to have?
Well, we went through. I
to-
mean, there were some things that we did.
Yeah.
We got our nonprofit designation, and we incorporated. And you know, you write a bylaws, and there's a lot of administrative stuff
Yeah.
that has to be done. Well, most of it has to be done, and that's kind of fairly standard, I think. You think that's
I think that
some of that stuff is standard?
Yeah, your
Yeah.
question is correct in the sense that people who decide to start a village don't necessarily possess the skill set or expertise or even knowledge
Right.
necessary to
That's a good
start
point.
this
Yeah.
idea, and which
Yeah.
is why the county had, in its wisdom, assigned a person whose sole job is to give people that information
Yeah.
so that they don't have to scramble and reinvent the wheel every single
Right.
time. So what does that mean? What is a
Yeah.
bylaws and
Right.
who can be on the board? So in that respect, people do need to get some training, but that's not something that requires credentialing or certification, simply the transfer of knowledge and information.
Knowledge and information
Correct.
that other people have gone through,
Right.
so you don't have to start at the ground level and
Right.
say, excuse me, what do we do from here?
Exactly.
So if you live in a village, if that's the correct term.
Well, if you live
Oh.
in an area covered by a village.
There you
that might
go.
be-
If you live in an
Yeah.
area covered by a village and you want to move, let's say, to Florida or Massachusetts or Connecticut or wherever, do you retain your membership, or do you have to find another village and then see if you'll be accepted there? Or
Well, let's think about what does it mean to be a part of a village. It means to connect with people, whether it is on a small potluck in someone's home or going for a walking with a walking group or just checking out Strathmore show one evening a month. And that's something you cannot do in Florida. If you need someone to help you out, no one is going to fly from Maryland to Florida unless
Yeah.
they're super dedicated.
Right.
And that can happen.
Right.
I give you that.
Yeah.
But in the sense of what it really means to be a part of the village, you should be in the community. No one's going to tell you, you no longer belong. They can say, well, sure, come on by. If you want to be a part of our community, when you're around, you're welcome. So it's a very inclusive, loving community rather than an exclusive membership-only type thing.
yeah.
And there are some other villages throughout the country where you have people live there and they're snowbirds. So for half of the year, they're in some warmer clime.
Yeah.
But then for the other half of the year, when they're back in their home territory, they're still there. They're still in the village. They still can hang out with the village people,
Yeah.
and so to speak.
So to
and,
speak.
And to
Go to the
to go to
YMCA
social
and-
right.
Yeah.
Go to events and get services and whatever. So
Yeah.
it can work a little bit. But
But
if you
yeah.
move away, it's probably time to find another village.
Yeah. And if I were to move into Kensington, how would I know that this exists? Is there a sign that says welcome to the villages, or is there a welcome wagon that comes by and says, oh, you're an old woman, you could join us?
Well, actually, let me correct that. We are an intergenerational village,
Yeah.
and so although it's focused on seniors, we'll let anybody can join who wants to join, and we have people who are not technically seniors who are members. But how to find out about that? We're new. We just opened fully July 1st last year, so we haven't even been fully open for a whole year. So we're still working on how to do that. A lot of it is word of mouth. It depends, and word of brochure,
Word of brochure.
and,
Yeah.
and word of website.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is word of mouth, and we're working on that. We don't have, not that I know of in our neighborhoods, too many welcome wagons. If we did, those would be in the
Yeah.
welcome wagon kit. But we don't, and there are a lot of also civic associations in Kensington, and we make sure that all the civic associations know about us, and so they can let their new people know about it.
And so what would I get out of, and we're coming up to a break, so we're going to start this discussion and then have to continue it, but what would I get out of being a member of the villages? Why should I join?
I think it depends on the village. Most of the villages offer a chance to connect with your neighbors, which a lot of people feel isolated in their communities. Many people that I speak with say, I can tell you who lives one house next to me, but 4 houses up, no clue. And in some of those early planning committees, you would see it's actually pretty frequent people say, I live on Elm Street. And the person on the other side says, oh, I live on Elm Street too. It turns out that they live so close by and they never had the chance to connect. So it really gives you the opportunity to connect to your neighbors and friends socially, which is a huge thing for people at any life stage. But as you grow older, social isolation is a pretty serious detriment on your health, both mental and cognitive and physical, emotional. So that's value proposition number one. The other element is the hands-on help. I need help. I can pick up the number, dial a number, and somebody on the other side will say, you need help? I'll make sure you get whatever help that requires.
Can I give you an example of that? In addition to being a board member, I'm also a member of the Villages of Kensington. And one of the many storms that we had in this early part of this year dropped a really big branch, really part of a tree in my backyard. Didn't hurt anything, didn't hurt anybody. But I don't have a good enough back or the right equipment to get rid of that thing. So I called our village's number, and one of our wonderful volunteers came over with a chainsaw, and she sawed it all up and put it in bags for the county to take away, and I could not have done that myself.
That is wonderful and a perfect place to stop. We have to take a short break, but please come right back. This is so interesting, and we're just getting started. Join us right after the break.
I'm Alejandro Escobedo. Music has always been my life, but that was almost taken away from me by hepatitis C. Thankfully, I received treatment and stopped cancer before it started. Yes, cancer. Most people don't know there's a link between certain viruses and cancer. I didn't know, but I do now, and so should you. That's why I've partnered with the Prevent Cancer Foundation. The 3 most common viruses linked to cancer are human papillomavirus, or HPV, hepatitis B, and hepatitis C. Every year, more than 27,000 men and women are diagnosed with a cancer caused by HPV, and up to 65% of all liver cancers are caused by Hep B or C. These cancers are preventable. Getting screened, vaccinated, and treated isn't scary, but cancer is. For more information, visit thinkaboutthelink.org. Together, we can stop cancer before it starts.
Hi, welcome back to Connecting Our Community. We're talking about the sort of phenomenon that is called the villages. And we have this brochure that Donna referred to and Pazita referred to a little bit earlier. And there's more information that will be on the websites at the end of the show, but we just wanted to show that really good brochure. But we were talking about what the villages are, what people can get out of it. We talked about the aging population, but also that this is intergenerational. So how do the people connect? How do you put them together? What's
The mechanism?
format? Yes.
Most villages have established a phone number, so you call, and volunteers take turns picking up the phone and responding to calls and inquiries. Some villages do have staff, and so that staff person is responsible for that. And most villages have a database or kind of a software IT management system that includes people's information and volunteer and members' information, and they have an IT capacity to make those connections and make it easy so people don't have to go through crazy list and start calling everybody. So our technology has made it substantially easier and smoother for villages to operate.
But who houses that technology in this day and age of stealing identities and things like that? Is there any concern for
Those
that?
databases are top of the line, state of the art, encrypted, and have all the security required. And it's also important to remember that villages are not a healthcare provider. So the amount of information they hold about their members is very limited to their names and addresses, phone numbers.
Email
So
address,
it's
that's
not.
about it.
So it wouldn't require, I mean, even if somebody hacked into the database, the amount of information they find could also be easily accessible, sadly, almost anywhere else.
Yeah. So who is the volunteer who answers the phone or accesses the website or the database or whatever? Is that somebody who would volunteer Mondays and Wednesdays, or somebody different every single day, or how does that?
Well, I'll tell you how it works. For us, it's probably different for everybody else. We have one volunteer, thank you, who answers the phone almost all the time except when she's out of town. And she's a volunteer, and she answers the phone, and she, as people call in for a service, she will put the information about that requested service into our database. And then our volunteers can log on to the database at any point they want. They also get an email once a week from our volunteer coordinator that lists all of the requested services. And all the volunteer has to do is click an accept button to accept that particular request. It's really easy, and then they, of course, call up the member and say, okay, I'll be over Thursday to cut up your firewood.
Yeah.
So it's very easy. It's really easy, which is really
And
nice.
does that seem to be the way that the other villages work in your
Many
experience?
villages do, yes. Some of them are extremely low-key. Some communities have a higher level of organic cohesiveness, and so things can happen very informally without one phone line that would a centralized way to process the request. And some of them use listservs, and a person would send a message, hi, need ride to doctor, and then sure enough someone will call them. So villages are remarkably different from one another, and that depends on a variety of factors. It could be the size of the community, the type of people who live in that community, the kind of leadership they have and what they'd like to invest in, and a whole other slew of variables. And what you really get eventually is idiosyncratic community organizations that are uniquely adapted to that particular community.
And do you find that it's mostly the aging part of the population of the membership who make the requests on a regular basis, or do you have younger people making requests for things that then the older person can come over and say, oh, I can do that, or does it work that way as well?
I think it depends on the
It
village.
depends on the village.
And what I like the most about many villages, I've found that distinction between somebody who receives help and someone who gives help is really not there, that the lines are blurry, and someone could be a person who receives a ride but can volunteer for someone else nonetheless, whether it is in the office stuffing envelopes or making friendly check-in through using your phone. And so you recognize the fact that we all have something to give back to the community we live in. And so it's a reciprocal relationship.
Yeah. And do you find that really works that way? Because I know it's easy to say, oh sure, someone will take a penny and someone will leave a penny and it will balance itself out. But do you find that there are people who just maybe take advantage of it? And if so, what happens to them?
We haven't found that. I mean, we have a couple of members who are 90 plus years old, and they're basically homebound, not completely, but basically homebound. And but they can still call somebody up and do a friendly telephone check-in or something like that. So we just expect people to ask for what they need and give what they can. That's all.
I think that's a great motto.
Yeah.
You should adapt that as your motto. But if someone wanted to volunteer, for example, I don't live in a village, so could I volunteer in a village, or do I have to be a member of that particular? No. So if I live in Anne Arundel County, could I volunteer to help someone in Montgomery County or Prince George's County or?
You could, though you might find that there are villages close by. For example, Annapolis has a village, and some adjacent communities are developing their own. So for you or anyone else who live in that area, that might be a better solution just for convenience reasons.
Yeah.
But villages are welcoming to anyone who wants to volunteer. Some of them would even accept what they call an associate member for people outside the boundary of the village who just want to be a part of the social activities. So that's another way of connecting without being a part of the specific defined community. And if you want to find out about villages in Montgomery County, I have an interactive map on the website, and I know that at the end you guys are going to show on the credit how to find it, but you can plug in an address, so whoever you want to refer to a village, you want to find out for yourself, and you can learn about the villages that are currently serving the various communities of Montgomery County.
Yeah.
And then you can call them and find out.
Yeah, that is, and to be a volunteer, do you have to have any specific, like you're a social worker, Donna, I don't know what your
No.
background is, but
No, you don't. You don't have to have any particular background, but you do need, at least for us, you do need to have a criminal background check. And if you're going to be doing driving, you have to have a motor vehicle check. And we also do a training program, hour and a half, 2 hours worth of training, and then you can volunteer.
and can you volunteer? For example, I have no medical training. Would I be considered as a volunteer for someone who needs a home health care situation to be fixed or
Well,
helped?
we have a list of various things that volunteers can do, and we ask people when they sign up to be a volunteer to check those things.
The things,
I would think that you would probably not check things related to things that you don't know anything about.
Yeah,
So,
I would hope.
and if something comes up with, you know, you're helping somebody go shopping with them or something like that, and something health related comes up that you don't feel comfortable with, that's why we have a volunteer coordinator. And you get back with that person and say, you know, this person needs something more than I can handle, and then it gets worked out.
And
some
is
way.
there any affiliate? Oh, I'm sorry. Go
I'm
ahead.
going to say, I think it's important to keep in mind that villages, volunteers in villages, are not professionals in any stretch of the
Yes.
imagination.
Yeah.
So anything that requires a skilled type of service, that will not be something a village volunteer will do.
Right.
Another way of thinking about it is, what would you hope or accept from a neighbor?
Yeah.
If a friendly neighbor came by, you wouldn't ask them, can you please change my wound?
Yeah,
Right, but you can say, oh, do you mind dropping by Giant and pick up my prescription?
Yeah.
And so people are not expected to deliver any kind of professional skill. What villages do is they help people connect to the services and resources people need where the skilled service is required.
and have you done any kind of research or studies or anything about the sociability of it, keeping the aging population or whatever population you would zero in on at home longer or happier or more cognizant or anything like that?
There are national studies that have been done and are still underway, and we hope to do something locally, but this is a big endeavor, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
And people report higher level of satisfaction, report being more involved in community life, and interestingly enough, the group that benefited the most out of becoming a part of a village are the volunteers, the
I-
people who are just finding meaning and connection in the community.
Yeah, I think that goes for any volunteer
Right.
organization. Usually
Yeah.
the volunteer
Get a lot
gets
out of
more
it.
out of
Yeah.
it than the recipient.
And there's something really magical about being a member and volunteering for your neighbors. It's not somebody who is somewhere and we'll never see them again. You're investing in your community and your connections.
Yeah. And I think what you've said, that with neighborhoods these days being so transient, you may not know the person who's living next door to you because you don't go out to get the mail the same time that person goes out to get the mail or to get the news or whatever it is. And I think just knowing who's around you, it just gives you, whatever age, whatever circumstance, just makes you feel more comfortable and happier in general because you feel comfortable, and the two things go together, I think.
Very
And
true.
I would think that that would
Yeah.
be in your studies if you were to do them as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the minute that remains, I'll give you each 30 seconds to tell me your top thing you want people to take away from this program.
I think I'd like to let people know that if they don't have a village in their community, after they go on the internet and find out, there's nothing for me in my community, that there's lots they can do about it. And if they call me, I can tell them all about how, when, who, why, and how.
And how, the biggest part. And
Yes,
Donna,
yeah.
15 seconds.
15 seconds. Well, if you live in zip code 20895,
You're
get
a
in
lucky
touch with
man.
you're lucky. Get in touch with us if you'd like to do volunteering, if you'd like to do some socializing with people in the neighborhood, or if you'd like to volunteer to give services. We're there for you.
Perfect. A perfect way to end the show. Thank you both so much. This is
Thank
really
you.
fascinating.
Thank
And
you.
for more information, you can go to the website, montgomerycountymd.gov/village. For the Villages of Kensington, you can go to their website, which is villagesofkensington.org. Of course, everything is a .org. So I want to thank you again both so much for being here. And please, we hope to see you again next time on the next episode of Connecting Our Community. You can also go to the Connecting Our Community blog on the mymcmedia.org website. Thank you for watching, and we really do hope to see you next time. Thank you so much.